Hey guys, Palpatine here. Today we deep dive into Sharkry, the little devil. As we said in the rankings overview video for all the units, she's a 4-star character with the power of a 5-star. Check out that video if you haven't, link in the description below. Sharkry is definitely worth the investment and a spot on your team if you have her and you like her. With an overall rating of 70.85 points, her popularity is at 65 points. Now keep in mind we did Suomi deep dive first to start off the series, and Suomi is rank 1 on our overall ranking, so the bar is set pretty high. So we should get used to seeing other units having lower numbers than Suomi. It doesn't necessarily mean they're bad, it just means that, if we're doing a ranking, we gotta try to be objective and realistic, right? So Sharkry is still in a very decent number of fire burn teams in China a year after release. So it's safe to say she's good enough to invest in. Her usage rate of 70 points is decently high, especially for a 4-star. Basically later on in this game, if you have 4 stars on your team, it's probably either Loda or Sharkry. One disclaimer, this is a highly strategic game, and in a couple of months, most players who play and enjoy the game should have most, if not all the units, at least one copy. So the game expects you to have a lot of these tools to play around with, and is designed that way as well. So you're not really meant to just zero in on a 5-man team and never change it up. Many 5-star units aren't good in many situations. I would say in Sharkry's case, she's good in more situations than some of the 5-star units. For stability recovery, 0 points, nothing to say here. DPS units don't really have it. For gear and attachment synergy, 60 points. This is kind of a thorn on her side, to be honest, because her outputs are both physical and burn damage somewhat equally, and doesn't really favor one or the other. So gearing for her isn't gonna be able to achieve maximum efficiency, right? Because if you give her a lot of physical bonus, then her burn damage doesn't benefit from that, and vice versa. But one thing to note is Sharkry's passive does give her a 30% crit when attacking enemies affected with overburn. If you use a burn team, then all the enemies are gonna be getting overburn anyway. So essentially Sharkry just gets a permanent 30% crit chance, which is huge because it means it's a lot easier to roll stats for her attachments when you don't have to worry about the crit stat, right? This is a real advantage because rolling stats on attachments is so RNG. For weapons, Sharkry mostly uses the Planeta. Now, she's an excellent stability breaker at 90 points. She's amongst top 3 stability breakers in the game, and we'll go into details when we analyze her skills. For her keys, they're also superb at 95 points, because her universal key, her common key, which increases damage dealt if a unit has 1 buff or more by 7%. This is just so strong and versatile. Even though it doesn't change your playstyle in any fundamental way, it simply raises the damage floor that you do by a good amount. Because there are a million buffs in this game, so in late game every unit is always going to be buffed, and being a 4-star means you don't need as many info cores to unlock her common key. So this common key alone is worth at least leveling her up so you can unlock it. At least you can use it for other units. For fixed keys, you want to bring the +3 CI, short for Confectance Index, at the start of battle, so you can pop your ultimate twice right away. The second one you need is thermal feedback. This is a game changer for Sharkry, and is considered to be one of the most powerful fixed keys in the game, as it gives her 3 times support attack on enemies with overburn. Now this key alone could potentially output 240% of physical damage with 6 stability damage. It's totally bonkers. Another one to bring is Deadly Allure to do more damage to enemies with overburn. Another one that's situationally quite useful is Palm Blown Kiss. When you attack an enemy with overburn, this is useful when you're not bringing a healer and you want to help yourself sustain a little bit. So as you can see, the entire kit of Sharkry revolves around this overburn debuff, which we're gonna get into in more detail in her skills section. For her stats, she's at 50 points and is honestly one of the lowest, like Latara or Kralik and a few other 4 stars. It's not a deal breaker by any means, but we just have to acknowledge it. 4-star characters in this game all have relatively weaker stats, and that's totally understandable, right? Now, why does Sharkry get 50 points only in stats? Is because of her low attack stat, and it's really low. So among all the DPS units, I think she's got the lowest attack stat, but she makes up for it in other ways. But you know, that's an F, so press F to pay respects to her low attack stat. We gotta acknowledge it. Now, she's got 9 points in stability and 5 movement, 20 crit and 120 crit damage. Those are all pretty similar to most other DPS units. Although in the CN version, Sharkry's crit damage shows 130 instead of 120 for us, so maybe she got a buff at some point. Now that we've established Sharkry as being a top 3 stability breaker in the game with low attack stat, which means it's best to pair Sharkry with a mega DPS unit that may not have the best stability breaking capabilities. So for those who watched my previous video, you probably guessed it, Chonju is a great partner for Sharkry. They complement each other very well. And another good partner would be Kralik, and we'll get into her in a future video. Now comes the big category, skills. She gets an amazing 85 points, very strong set of skills, and her rotation is straightforward. For her skill 2, she applies Overburn, which burns the enemy for a fixed damage equal to 10% of Sharkry's attack. This fixed damage is essentially true damage in other games, and it bypasses a lot of annoying mechanics. Like later on, we'll have mobs, when they take fatal damage, instead of dying, they live with 1 HP, which is super annoying. But Overburn bypasses that and just kills them right away. Also, when Sharkry is under the effect of Zoomed In, you get an extra stability damage, which adds to the existing 3 from the skill, which means you have 4 stability damage. This is considered pretty high amongst DPS units, because most of them just do like 2 to 3 stability damage. And for her skill 3, it does physical damage instead. And if the target already has the Overburn debuff, it then applies another debuff called Flammable. Now this Flammable debuff makes the enemy take 2 additional stability damage when they get burned, and you recover 2 stability as well. Very solid buff. Plus, if you kill an enemy with skill 3, you gain another charge of Zoomed In. So now we know the normal rotation for Sharkry is just skill 2 first, apply that Overburn, then you use skill 3 to apply Flammable. But if you have another teammate that's already applying the overburn, like Chunju for example, then Sharkry can just start out with skill 3. For her skill 4 ultimate, it's a buff that you can pop for 3 CI. You pop it and you gain the zoom in buff and the damage up buff, and you can still use your skill 2 or 3 on the same turn. So if you have max CI, you can actually pop your ult twice in a row, get 2 zoom in stacks, then you use your skill 2 or 3. So at max CI, you can have like 3 actions in a turn. But keep in mind, sometimes you don't need to pop your ult twice because your skill 3 actually gives you a stack of zoom in when you kill an enemy with it. And you can only have a maximum of 2 stacks of zoom in. And having zoom in uptime is very key for Sharkry because that's kind of her bread and butter as a stability breaker. A lot of elite mobs in this game like to hide behind cover, and bosses later on tend to have like all these buffs and debuffs based on whether they have stability points or not. So the bottom line is, the faster you break their stability, the faster you kill them. It's that simple. So that was our Sharkry deep dive. If you have any characters that you want to see, please feel free to leave it in the comments and I'll prioritize those characters. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next time.